Anika Reed's fingers trembled against the cool satin as Junho Baek's silhouette cut across the room, his broad frame swallowing the panoramic view of the glittering Busan skyline behind him. The city's light carved his face into something sculptural, all sharp edges and darker purpose. Her pulse hammered so hard she was sure he could hear it in the penthouse's hush. Frightened? His voice was smooth as dark water, his slight Korean lilt turning each syllable into something that felt simultaneously like a warning and an invitation. She should have lied. Should have said no. But when her eyes drifted, just for a breath, down the carved lines of his chest to where his hands worked the buckle at his waist, the words that escaped were nothing but reflex. That's. The whisper dissolved between them like smoke, like confession, like surrender. Junho went absolutely still. Then the corner of his mouth curved into something far more predatory than a smile. He stepped closer, the mattress accepting his weight as he reached out and cradled her jaw with a tenderness that felt dangerous in his hands. Easy, he murmured against her temple. I'll go slow. She hated the way her body answered the dark promise buried in those words. Hated how every clear-headed thought scattered the moment his thumb pressed softly against her racing pulse. I'll take care of you, Anika. I promise. But nothing about this man whispered gentle. Not the serpent tattooed across his ribcage, not the faded scars along his knuckles, not the reputation that moved through Busan's underground like a cold current. And certainly not the consuming hunger in his gaze, the way he looked at her as though she were something already claimed, something he had no intention of releasing. 12 hours ago thinking had felt so much simpler. Anika had stood in this same penthouse fully dressed, furious, and gripping a legal document that promised to wipe away $2 million of her father's debt. 12 months of marriage to a stranger. 1 year of performing the role of devoted wife to Busan's most dangerous man. This can't be serious, she told the attorney who had flown her first class from Chicago's O'Hare to Gimhae International. This is insane. It is legal, the lawyer replied, and given your father's circumstances, remarkably generous. Before she could respond, a new voice cut cleanly through her panic. Miss Reed. She turned, and there he was. Baek Junho, 34 years old, director of the Baek Criminal Network, wearing a tailored Italian suit like armor and regarding her as though she were a problem he intended to solve completely. Your father made careless choices, he said, circling her with slow deliberation, his gaze moving over her with detached precision. But you can correct them. 12 months as my wife. Public appearances, a convincing performance. In exchange, his debt disappears. And if I refuse? Something cold flickered in his eyes. Then your father's balance comes due tonight. The threat hung between them like a drawn blade. But what came next was worse. Junho stepped forward, close enough that she caught his cologne, something expensive and shadowed that made her pulse stutter. You have your father's mouth, he murmured, but your mother's spine, I think. Korean, wasn't she? Anika's breath caught. How did you? I know everything about you. Anika Reed, 28. Art history degree. Museum curator. Sends money home every month even though he doesn't deserve it. His fingertip traced her cheekbone, possessive and deliberate. Loyal to a fault. That's what I need. The fact that he'd researched her so thoroughly should have horrified her. Instead, it sent warmth pooling low in her stomach, a warning she chose to ignore. 6 hours after signing that contract, Anika stood in a traditional wedding hall in Haeundae, wearing an ivory gown and a silk jacket embroidered with persimmon blossoms. The ceremony had passed in a blur, Junho's hand warm and steady against hers, his voice speaking vows in Korean she couldn't follow. An elderly woman had pressed silk pouches into their joined hands. For your future together, she offered in careful English. There was no future here. Only 12 months of pretending. But when Junho had tipped her chin and kissed her in front of 200 witnesses, there had been nothing pretend about how her body responded. Nothing performed about the ownership in his grip. Mine, he had breathed against her lips in Korean. She hadn't needed translation to understand. Now in the darkened bedroom, Junho's hands traced her body with devastating precision. Every touch a claim. Every kiss a branding. Look at me, he commanded softly, tilting her chin up. I want to see your eyes when I make you forget you ever thought you could resist this. It's just chemistry, she breathed as his mouth found a sensitive place beneath her ear. Physical reaction. His quiet laugh was like dark velvet. Keep telling yourself that. By the time this year is done, you won't remember what it felt like not to belong to me. His arrogance should have infuriated her. Instead, as his body pressed against hers and he whispered low promises in a blend of English and Korean, Anika felt something inside her fracture and rebuild itself into something dangerous. Hours later, she woke from dreams of his hands and voice and that consuming possession in his gaze, and found him across the room, fully dressed, phone in hand, watching her. The predatory satisfaction on his face told her everything. "Nightmare?" he asked, voice rough. Her face burned. The sheets were twisted around her, her body still humming with the memory of his touch. "What time is it?" "Early." He moved toward the bed, and she hated how instinctively she leaned toward him. "Rest. We have dinner tonight with some of my associates. You'll need to be present. I'm not a doll you can arrange." He caught her chin, thumb pressing gently against her lips. "No. You're my wife. There's a difference." His gaze darkened. "After last night, I believe we both understand exactly what that means." He pressed a kiss to her forehead, surprisingly tender, and said, "When you meet these people tonight, they'll need to believe you're completely in love with me. That's going to be difficult considering I barely know you. Then I suggest you be a convincing actress." His hand settled possessively on her hip. "Because if they suspect this marriage is anything less than real, your father's debt reactivates. And I'd hate for everything last night meant to amount to nothing." The careless cruelty of the threat tangled with the intimacy of his touch and left her chest hollow. After he left, Anika stared at the ceiling, her body still aching from his attention, her mind racing. She had 11 months and 29 days remaining in this arrangement. 11 months of pretending to love a man who saw her as an asset, a resolution to whatever game he was playing. But as she rolled over and breathed in the trace of his cologne on the pillow beside her, as her body responded with a need that terrified her, Anika realized the most dangerous truth of all. She wasn't certain how much of it would be pretending. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. An unknown number. "Welcome to the family, Mrs. Beck. We're all so eager to meet the woman who finally captured Junho's attention. See you this evening. Seo Juno." The name meant nothing to her, but the chill that climbed her spine, the instinct that something predatory had just noticed her, said more than enough. Tonight's dinner wasn't a social occasion. It was an audition. A test. And failure would cost more than she could pay. The Latte Hotel's private dining room glowed amber and gold. Crystal fixtures cast long shadows across faces Anika didn't recognize but instinctively feared. She sat at Junho's right hand at the head of a long table, her hand trapped beneath his on the white linen, a gesture that read as affection but functioned as a leash. "You look frightened," he murmured near her ear, his thumb tracing the inside of her wrist. "I am frightened," she whispered, watching 8 pairs of eyes study her like specimens. "Good. Fear keeps you alert. Remember, you belong to me. They can't touch you." She didn't feel protected. She felt displayed. "So this is the American bride." A voice drawled from across the table. Seo Juno, mid-30s, expensive suit, eyes like cold glass appraising fragile things. "Junhoya, you didn't mention she was so delicate." The way he used that word made it sound like a liability. "Careful, Juno." Junho's voice stayed pleasant, but the current beneath it was unmistakable. "That's my wife you're addressing." "Of course. My apologies, Mrs. Beck." Juno raised his glass in a mocking salute. "I'm simply surprised. Our Junho typically prefers women who understand this world. Tell me, what does a museum curator from Chicago know about the family business?" The table fell silent. Anika felt Junho's expectation pressing against her like weight. "I know that family means loyalty," she said steadily, meeting Juno's gaze. "And that some debts are settled in currencies other than money." A woman to Juno's left, beautiful, cold, draped in diamonds that could fund a small nation, laughed softly. "She has edges. I like her." "Minji doesn't like anyone," Junho said, relaxing slightly. "Consider that a genuine honor." Minji's smile was all blade. "I simply appreciate honesty. Too many women play innocent when they enter this life." Her assessment of Anika was surgical. "But you understand exactly what you agreed to, don't you, Mrs. Beck?" Did she? 24 hours ago, Anika had been managing a Monet retrospective at the Art Institute. Now she sat among Busan's criminal aristocracy, performing devotion to a man who'd purchased her like a rare acquisition. "I know my husband," Anika said finally, and felt Junho's approval in the way his hand shifted to her thigh beneath the table, possessive, claiming. The meal unfolded course by course, wagyu so tender it dissolved on her tongue, rich bone broth that warmed her from the inside, banchan spread across the table in a tapestry of color. The food was exquisite. She could barely taste any of it. An older man at the far end of the table, who had been silent until now, spoke carefully. "Your mother was Korean." Anika's throat tightened. "She passed when I was 12. Cancer. And she taught you our language?" "Some. Not fluently." The man, Mr. Lim, Junho had mentioned him in the car, nodded slowly, then directed something swift and quiet toward Junho in Korean. Whatever it was made Junho's hand close tightly on her thigh. "In English, Limisai, Junho said, his voice pleasant but edged. My wife shouldn't feel excluded at her own welcome dinner. Lim smiled with his mouth only. I only said your bride is lovelier than the story suggested. You're a fortunate man. He was lying. Whatever he had actually said had wounded Junho's entire body like a coil. The dinner continued through forced pleasantries, but Anika read the undercurrents. Juno catalogued her vulnerabilities. Minji watched Junho with something that edged toward pity. Lim kept glancing between them with an expression that turned her stomach. They didn't believe the marriage was genuine. The question was what they planned to do about it. If you'll excuse us, Junho said abruptly, rising and drawing Anika up with him. My wife needs air. He guided her, hand locked around her wrist, down a corridor hung with traditional Korean landscape paintings and out onto a small balcony overlooking Busan's luminous nightscape. The November wind hit her like cold water. You did well, Junho said, releasing her wrist only to cage her against the railing, his body cutting off retreat. Better than I anticipated. What did Lim actually say? Something moved through his eyes. Surprise perhaps. Or respect. He said you look like a woman playing dress-up in a world she doesn't understand. That I'd be bored with you within a month. The words stung more than they should have. And you? Nothing. I don't explain myself to anyone. His hand cupped her face, tilting it upward. Words are worthless, Anika. Actions are the only proof that matters. Before she could ask what he meant, he kissed her. Not the restrained kiss from their ceremony. Not the consuming one from the previous night. This was something else entirely. Performance and possession and raw promise collapsed into a single devastating act. When he finally pulled back, she was breathless and clutching the lapels of his jacket to stay upright. Juno is watching from the window, he murmured against her lips. Along with half the table. Now they're reconsidering. Maybe I'm genuinely consumed by my beautiful American wife after all. The calculation in his voice should have hurt. Instead it lit something dangerous in her chest. And are you? His eyes went dark. What do you think? You called my name in your sleep this morning. You think that doesn't reach me? You think I don't want to cancel this entire evening and take you back inside? Heat flooded through her. Then why don't you? Because first you need to understand something. He stepped back and the absence of his warmth felt like desertion. After tonight they know you matter to me. Which makes you valuable. And in my world, what's valuable becomes a target. Her heart hammered. What does that mean? It means you don't leave my side. You don't trust anyone in that room. Not Juno. Not Lim. Not even Minji, no matter how welcoming she appears. His jaw tightened. And you don't let anyone convince you that whatever exists between us is purely contractual. Isn't it? His laugh was raw and broken. If it were only business, I wouldn't feel the urge to destroy every man who looked at you tonight. If it were only business, I wouldn't be terrified about what Juno is already plotting to do with you as leverage. The honesty in his voice stole her breath. This wasn't the composed crime lord. This was something unraveling beneath the surface. Then we go back in. He straightened his tie, the mask sliding back into place. Touch my arm. Smile like I just said something that made you blush. Make them believe. She did. And hated how natural it felt, how effortless it was to lean into him as they re-entered the dining room, how right his arm felt across her back. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. Dessert arrived. Delicate shaved ice with fruit and sweet red bean, more toasts, more appraising glances. But now Anika paid closer attention. The way Juno tracked every contact between her and Junho. The way Minji watched them with something that moved uncomfortably close to concern. The way Lim whispered to his neighbor whenever Junho looked elsewhere. She was being assessed, measured for use or threat. As guests finally began departing, Minji slipped close while Junho spoke with Lim near the exit. He's different with you, Minji said quietly, studying Anika's face. I've known Junho for 10 years. I've never seen him possessive over anything except power. It's a performance, Anika said. Is it? Minji's laugh held something bitter. Then he's a far better actor than I've given him credit for. Because the way he looks at you, that isn't strategy, Mrs. Beck. That's obsession. And obsessed men make errors. Why are you telling me this? Minji glanced toward Junho, something unreadable crossing her face. Because I don't want to witness another decent woman being consumed by this world. Guard yourself. Men like Junho don't know how to love without making it absolute. Then she was gone, leaving Anika with the unsettling sense that Minji had just tried to protect her from something she hadn't yet fully seen. The drive back to the penthouse was silent. Junho stared out the window, jaw set, one hand still wrapped possessively around Anika's. The tension radiating from him was palpable. When they reached their building, he pulled her into the elevator and pressed her against the mirrored wall before the doors had even closed. What did Minji say to you? She warned me that you're obsessed with me. Perceptive woman. His mouth found her neck. What did you say? That it's all an act. Junho pulled back, eyes burning into hers. And you believe that? Her breath caught at the intensity in his face, at the way his hands shook slightly at her hips. I don't know what I believe anymore. Good. The elevator doors opened to the penthouse. Because I'm not certain either. The admission hit her like a physical blow. This dangerous man, this criminal who had purchased her like property, was uncertain. About her. About them. About whatever this devouring thing was becoming between them. Anika searched his face for the lie, for the manipulation. But all she found was a raw honesty that frightened her more than any threat ever had. He swept her up without warning, carrying her toward the bedroom, but before they reached the door, his phone buzzed. What? Twice. 3 times in rapid succession. He stopped. The tension flooded back into his shoulders. He set her down carefully, then checked his screen. Whatever he saw made his face go absolutely blank. What is it? She whispered. He turned the screen toward her. Security footage. The Art Institute of Chicago. Her office. Someone going methodically through her desk drawers. The timestamp read 8:47 p.m. Central Standard Time, while she'd been at dinner in Busan. Someone is looking for something, Junho said quietly. Something they believe you possess. Or no. I don't understand. I'm nobody. I work in a museum. Your mother was Korean. Your father has a debt to a criminal organization. And now you're my wife. His eyes met hers. You were never nobody, Anika. You were always exactly what someone wanted. The words settled around her like a noose slowly tightening. The question is who? And what they're willing to do to obtain it. 3 days into the marriage, Anika had learned Junho's patterns. He woke before dawn. Worked in his study with the door sealed. Emerged hours later wearing composure like armor. This morning felt different. She found him on the balcony, phone pressed to his ear, speaking Korean that sounded like controlled fury. When he noticed her, he ended the call. You're up early, he said, carefully neutral. So are you. She pulled her robe tighter against the November chill. Everything all right? Fine. But his shoulders contradicted him. He turned to face her fully and she saw shadows beneath his eyes. We need to discuss this evening. There's a charity gala at the Grand Josian Hotel. Influential people. Dangerous people. His jaw tightened. Juno will be there with associates. You need to be flawless tonight, Anika. No errors. I've managed well enough at the other events. This is different. Something is moving. He stepped closer and she caught what looked almost like worry in his expression. Until I understand what, you don't leave my immediate sight. She wanted to argue. But the genuine unease beneath his commanding tone stopped her. Understood. His hand cupped her face with unexpected care. Wear the deep red dress tonight. The one that makes every man in that room want what they can't have. Heat moved through her despite herself. Possessive much? Always. His thumb traced her lower lip. Especially with what's mine. The Grand Josian's ballroom glittered with Busan's finest, politicians, business figures, and the criminal architects who actually govern the city. Anika moved through the crowd at Junho's side, hyper-aware of his hand at the small of her back, close enough to feel like protection, close enough to feel like a boundary. They were midway through a string of introductions when Minji appeared, striking in black, and leaned to kiss Anika's cheek. Powder room, she breathed just below hearing. 10 minutes. It matters. Then she glided away. Anika's pulse spiked. What could Minji need that demanded secrecy? And should she go? The question shadowed her through the next several conversations. When Seo Juno finally materialized with 2 unfamiliar men, Junho went rigid at her side. Junho-ya, Juno said warmly, his smile all teeth. The houndy situation, I need a private word. Perhaps your lovely wife could freshen up while we talk. It wasn't a request. Anika felt the power play, Juno forcing Junho to choose between authority and keeping her close. Junho's hand found hers and squeezed, almost painfully. 5 minutes, he said quietly, his eyes locked on hers. Both promise and warning. She understood. The restroom was empty except for Minji, who paced near the sinks like something caged. You came, Minji breathed. Good. We don't have much time. What is this about? Minji stopped pacing. I'm about to tell you something that changes everything. But first, do you know why your father actually sent you here? Anika's chest tightened. His debt doesn't exist. Minji's words fell like stones dropped in still water. Your father never lost 2 million at a table, Anika. He embezzled it from Junho's organization over 6 months while working as their accountant. The floor seemed to tilt. That's not possible. When Junho discovered the theft, your father panicked. He'd already spent most of it. Couldn't repay it. So he negotiated. Minji drew out her phone with trembling hands. He offered Junho something more valuable than cash. Me. The word came out hollow. You. But that's not the worst of it. Minji's expression held something close to pity. Your father didn't offer you only to Junho. He offered you to Seo Juno first. Anika gripped the edge of the marble counter. Cold and solid and real in a world that had just shattered around her. Her father, the man who'd taught her to ride a bike, who'd cried at her college graduation, had sold her twice. As though she were nothing more than currency in a game she hadn't been invited to play. 3 months ago, your father approached Juno with intelligence about Junho's operation, Minji continued, her voice dropping. Financial records. Shipping routes. Everything needed to dismantle Junho's network. But Juno wanted insurance. Assurance your father wouldn't reverse course. So your father suggested placing you inside Junho's life as his wife. Why are you telling me this? Because Juno sent me to get close to you. To extract information through you. To report on Junho's vulnerabilities. Minji's eyes were haunted. But I've spent 3 days watching you both. And what I'm seeing frightens me. What do you see? Junho changing because of you. Becoming possessive. Distracted. I've known him a decade. He's never lost composure over anything. With you he's different. Dangerous. Minji gripped her shoulders. Which makes you the perfect instrument. The words landed like strikes. Every tender moment, every whispered promise, every time she called his name, all of it reshaping into something darker. Maybe Junho had known from the beginning. Known she was sent to destroy him, and married her anyway because he was more skilled at this game than her father could ever be. Does Junho know? Anika managed. About my father and Juno? I don't know what Junho knows. But I know what Juno is planning. Something is happening tonight. Your father is here in Busan. And Juno has been too confident lately. Whatever they're moving toward, it involves you. The bathroom door swung open. A woman glanced in and retreated immediately. Tell Junho, Minji urged. Tell him everything. Let him protect you. Will he? Anger sliced through the shock. Or will he use me as bait like everyone else? Anika. She was already moving toward the door on legs that felt like water. But when she opened it, Junho stood on the other side. The expression on his face, ice-cold fury layered over something that looked disturbingly like hurt, told her he'd heard enough. Inside, he said quietly, the word carrying the quiet danger of something very controlled. Now. He led her down the corridor, past curious glances, into a private room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Busan's nightscape. He locked the door behind them. The silence was suffocating. How much of it is true? He finally asked, his back to her. About your father. About Juno. About you. I don't know. I just found out. Did you know? He turned and she saw the fury restrained behind his eyes. When you signed the contract, when you stood beside me at our wedding, when you screamed my name in the dark, did you know you were Juno's arrangement? No. The accusation cut more than a slap. I believed I was saving my father from debt I thought was real. You thought what? That I was some monster preying on desperate women? He laughed, raw, broken. Maybe I am. Maybe I saw you walk into my study 3 days ago, understood exactly what your father was orchestrating, knew you were leverage, and married you anyway. She went still. You knew. I suspected. He moved closer, backing her against the window. The glass was cold against her spine. Your father's theft was too obvious. Too precisely timed. And you? His hand cupped her jaw almost gently. You were too brave, too real, too exactly what I didn't know I wanted. So you married me knowing I was meant to destroy you? I married you because I'm better at this than your father and Juno combined. Because I wanted you the moment I saw you. And because I knew that whatever trap they'd set, I could turn it against them. The calculation should have terrified her. Instead it lit something fierce in her chest. Then what am I to you, Junho? Genuinely. His jaw flexed. For a long moment he only looked at her, something unreadable cycling through his expression. You were supposed to be a tool, he said at last, voice rough. Something I use and discard when it no longer serves me. But you're not, are you? You're embedded in me. In my thoughts. Making me care when caring is the one thing that could undo everything I've built. The honesty stole her breath. So tell me. He leaned closer, his words falling against her lips. Are you here because your father sent you? Because you're working with Juno? Or because you can't stop wanting this as much as I do? She should have protected herself. Should have remembered who he was, what he'd admitted to, the precise and calculating way he moved through the world. But when his mouth found hers, Not measured, not controlled, just raw and desperate and honest. Anika stopped thinking entirely. She kissed him back with everything she had. All the confusion and anger and terrifying want that had been building since their wedding night. When they finally separated, both unsteady, he pressed his forehead to hers. "That's what I thought," he murmured. "You're in this as deep as I am." His phone buzzed. Urgently. Repeatedly. He checked it and his face went blank. "They hit my warehouse in Houndy," he said quietly. "While I was here. While I was distracted." His eyes found hers. "By you. Junho. I swear I didn't know." "I know." He stepped back and the loss of his warmth felt like abandonment. "But they used you regardless. Used the fact that I can't think clearly when you're involved." He moved toward the door. "Stay here. Don't leave this room. Don't trust anyone, not Minji, not security. Not even me if I come back acting different." He paused in the doorway. "When this is over, we're having a very long conversation about what happens next. Because you're right, you deserve to know whether any of this is real." Then he was gone, leaving her alone with Busan glittering below and the terrible knowledge that she'd become the center of a war she didn't fully understand. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. The warehouse was only the opening move. "If you want to save him, come to the east parking structure. Alone. You have 5 minutes. Dad." Anika's hands shook as she stared at the screen. Her father was here, asking her to choose. And she had absolutely no idea which choice would destroy her more completely. She stared at her father's message for exactly 3 seconds before deciding. She wasn't going alone. Her fingers moved to Junho's contact and began typing. "My father wants a meeting. East parking structure. I'm going. Find me." But before she could send it, the door burst open. Junho stood there, phone in hand, face carved from ice. "Going somewhere, wife?" Her heart lurched. "How did you? Your phone mirrors mine. Since our wedding night. Every message. Every call. Every location." His jaw tightened. "I see everything." Heat rushed to her face. Anger and something uncomfortably close to relief tangled together. "You've been tracking me. I've been protecting you. From your father, from Juno, and apparently from yourself, since you were about to walk into a meeting alone." He held up his own phone, showing her the unsent message. "Though it looks like you were going to tell me. He's my father. I need answers." Something in Junho's expression softened. Just slightly. "Then we get them. Together." He drew his weapon, checked it. "You're not facing him without me. He won't speak openly if you're there." Then he doesn't speak. Junho's voice went very quiet. "But you don't go alone." The service elevator descended in taut silence. Junho positioned himself slightly ahead of her, body angled, one hand near his weapon. Anika watched the floor numbers drop and thought about what words could possibly exist for this kind of betrayal. The doors opened to dim light and rows of polished cars. And there, leaning against a black sedan, was David Reed, alone. Though Anika noticed how Junho's eyes immediately swept the shadows. "Anika," her father said. Then his gaze shifted to Junho. "I said come alone. And I said she goes nowhere without me." Junho's voice stayed pleasant. Violence coiled beneath like a spring. "You want to talk to my wife, you do it with me present." David's jaw tightened. "This is between me and my daughter. You surrendered that right when you traded her." Junho stepped aside slightly. "Go ahead. I'm curious what story you've built for yourself." Anika walked forward on legs that shook. She stopped a few feet away, close enough to see the guilt written into the lines of her father's face. "Why?" The word came out fractured. "You don't know what it's like," he said. "Working for men like him. I took what I was owed." "You worked for me for 2 years," Junho said evenly. "You were compensated well. What you took was greed." "I know you went to Juno," Junho continued. "I know you offered him access to my operation. And I know that when he asked for collateral, you offered your daughter like she was currency." He said it with the calm of someone stating weather. "The question I'm still determining is what to do about it." David's hand moved toward his jacket. Junho's weapon was aimed before the motion completed. "Don't. Whatever you're reaching for, you'll never clear your pocket." "Dad," Anika said sharply. "Please." David froze. His eyes, desperate, wild, found hers. "I'm offering you an exit, Anika. We disappear together. You don't have to stay with him." For a moment she felt the pull of it, the idea of escape, the comfort of the familiar, even this familiar that had failed her so completely. "You're not offering freedom," she said quietly. "You're offering a different trap. Just one with you as the warden instead of him. I'm your father." "No." The word came out clean and certain. "A father protects his daughter. You pointed me at danger and called it rescue. That's not love. That's cowardice. David's face crumpled, then hardened. His hand dove toward his jacket. Everything compressed into seconds. He drew a gun. Junho fired. The shot echoed through the structure, but Junho hadn't aimed to kill. The bullet caught David's shoulder, spinning him. The gun clattered to concrete. Her father dropped to his knees, clutching the wound. That was your only warning, Junho said, weapon still trained. The next one won't be. Anika stood motionless, watching her father bleed on cold concrete. Watching him look up at her with desperation and regret. She'd walked into this parking structure as someone's daughter. The woman standing here was no longer that person. Can we go? She said to Junho. I'm done here. He studied her face, then nodded. A brief call in Korean. Within minutes, 2 men appeared, moving efficiently toward David. They'll stabilize him and put him on a plane, Junho said. He'll live. But if he comes back, I'll decide what happens if that comes up, Anika said. He's still my father. Junho paused, then nodded. Your call. Always. They rode the elevator back in silence. When the doors closed, Anika finally allowed herself to feel it. The betrayal, the grief, the slow death of the father she'd believed she knew. She sagged against the wall. Junho caught her, pulled her against his chest, and held her while she cried without saying a single word. By the time they reached the penthouse, she had no tears left. Only a hollow ache where her family used to be. He poured whiskey without asking. She drank it anyway. You've been tracking everything I do since our wedding, she said finally. That's a profound violation. It is. He sat beside her. And I won't stop. Because in my world, the people I care for become targets. I won't lose you because I respected your privacy more than I valued your life. The blunt honesty should have infuriated her. Instead it sent warmth moving through her, a response she was beginning to stop fighting. I should hate you for that. Probably. His hand found her face. Do you? She searched his eyes. I don't know what I feel anymore. Except exhausted and frightened and strangely safe when I shouldn't be. Safe is a start. I can build from safe. Her phone buzzed. Both went rigid. Junho took it from her pocket, his face going blank as he read the screen. He turned it toward her. A message from Juno. Your father failed. But don't worry, Mrs. Beck. I have other plans. Better ones. See you soon. And attached, a photograph that drained the warmth from her entirely. Her mother, young and smiling, standing beside a man she didn't recognize. A man with Juno's eyes. Who is that? She whispered. Seo Dae-sung. Junho's expression was stone. Juno's father. He died 15 years ago. Why is my mother in a photograph with him? I don't know yet. His hand tightened on hers. But whatever Juno believes he knows about your mother, whatever he's building toward, he's not getting near you. I promise you that. For the first time since any of this began, Anika believed him completely. And that terrified her more than anything else that had happened tonight. The photograph of her mother haunted her dreams. She woke gasping at 3 a.m, Junho's arm tightening around her waist before she'd even fully surfaced from the nightmare. The same dream? He asked, voice rough with sleep. She was calling to me, telling me to run. But I couldn't move. He pulled her closer, chin resting against her shoulder. Then we find out the truth together. By morning, he had called in every contact he possessed. His study was covered in documents, photographs, immigration files, records spanning decades. Your mother, Kim Soo-yeon, arrived in Chicago in 1998, he said, spreading photographs across the desk. She was 23. Told immigration she was a student. She was. Art history at Northwestern. That's how she met my father. There's no record of her enrollment. His finger traced a document. No visa application. No student records. It's as though she arrived in Chicago fully assembled, with a new identity. The floor seemed to tilt. That's impossible. I have photos of her at graduation. Fabricated. Professionally done. He pulled up digital files. The kind my organization creates for people who need to vanish. Anika's hands trembled. Why would my mother need to vanish? He turned his laptop toward her. A news article from Busan, 1997. The headline made her blood run cold. Businessman Seo Dae-sung found dead. Companion missing. The article showed 2 photographs. Juno's father. And beside it, a grainy image of a young woman being sought for questioning. Kim Soo-yeon. Her mother. She was 19 when this happened, Junho said, his voice uncharacteristically careful. Seo Dae-sung was 45, married, powerful, and according to these reports he had a documented history of violence toward the women in his life. You're saying she was there when he died? She was found in his apartment the morning of his death. She disappeared before investigators could question her. 6 months later, a woman named Kim Soo-yeon appeared in Chicago with clean documentation. His eyes met hers. Your mother was running, Anika. From the Seo family. From whatever happened that night. If Juno knows this, if he believes my mother killed his father, then his interest in you isn't only about me or your father. Junho's jaw tightened. It's personal. It's revenge. Anika moved to the window on unsteady legs. Busan sprawled below, beautiful and full of danger. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Both she and Junho went still. He shook his head, don't answer. But her finger was already moving. She put it on speaker. Hello, Anika. Juno's voice was smooth, unhurried. I trust Junho has found the newspaper articles by now. Then you know my mother was present when my father died. She didn't kill him, Anika said, though she had no certainty of this. Didn't she? His tone went cold. My father was strong. Then one evening he's alone with your mother and suddenly he's gone. Heart attack. Very convenient. If you had proof, you'd have gone to authorities. I was 12 years old when it happened, Juno said, and for just a moment something real moved through his voice. I watched my family torn apart. I spent 15 years searching for the woman who destroyed my father. She died before I could reach her. Cancer, wasn't it? How unfortunate. His voice sharpened like a blade. She got to die in her bed surrounded by family. But you, Anika, you're going to repay her debt. Until Junho understands what it means to lose everything. The call ended. Silence. He's coming for me, Anika said. Yes. Junho's voice was quiet, deadly. But he has to go through me first. He was already calling his inner circle. Mobilizing. Within hours he had assembled the full picture. Police records, medical reports, testimony from people who remembered Seo Dae-sung and what he'd done to the women in his orbit. And there in the middle of it, Anika's mother, 19 years old, desperate, trapped. She defended herself, Anika said softly, reading the examiner's notes. He had defensive wounds. She had broken ribs, facial injuries. Her blood was at the scene. She fought back. And when he died, heart failure from the exertion of attacking her, she ran. Because she knew no one would believe her. Junho's certainty was absolute. Juno doesn't care about truth. He wants someone to carry the cost. Then we give him something else to focus on. Junho's smile was sharp and unhesitating. Come with me. He unlocked a room she had never entered. When the door swung open, her breath caught. An armory. Weapons along every wall. Body armor on racks. Ammunition stored with surgical precision. This is insane, she said. This is survival. He lifted a slim black handgun and turned to her. And you're going to learn to use this. Because if Juno somehow reaches you past me and my people, you need to be able to protect yourself. He held it out. Anika looked at it for a long moment. Then she took it. They spent 2 hours in the building's private range. By the end, her arms burned and her ears rang, but she could reliably hit center mass at 15 feet. That's enough to save your life, Junho said, watching her final grouping. Later that night, she found him on the balcony, staring out over the city. She joined him, and he pulled her against his chest without a word. My mother spent 16 years in hiding, Anika said quietly. 16 years looking over her shoulder, carrying the weight of that night. And then she died without ever telling me the truth. She was keeping you separate from her past. From men like Juno who wanted payment. It didn't work. No. He tightened his arms around her. And that's on me. My existence brought this to your door. No. She turned in his arms. This started long before you. My father. My mother. Juno. They all made choices that led here. You're the only one who's been honest about what you want. His expression shifted. Raw and unguarded. And what do I want, Anika? She looked up at him. Me. Not as strategy or payment or leverage. Just me. Yes. The word came out rough. Which is the most terrifying thing I've ever admitted to anyone. He kissed her then, not calculated, not contained. Something desperate and genuine, as though he was afraid she might vanish the way her mother had. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing unevenly, he rested his forehead against hers. Tomorrow Juno makes his move, he said. I can feel it. Then we face it together. Together, he agreed. Her phone buzzed. From Juno. 3 words and an address in the Houndy Warehouse district. Come find me. It's a trap, Junho said immediately. Of course it is. She looked up at him. And we're going anyway, aren't we? His smile was all predator, all certainty. We are. But on our terms. The Houndy Warehouse loomed against the pre-dawn sky. Anika sat in the back of Junho's armored vehicle, the gun heavy in her jacket pocket, a convoy of vehicles surrounding them. His entire inner circle mobilized. "You don't have to go in," he said, his hand finding hers in the dark. "You can stay with the car." "No. Juno wants me there. Without me he won't show himself." She met his eyes. "This ends tonight." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Stay behind me. If I signal, you run." "What's the signal?" He pressed his lips to her forehead. "You'll know it." They entered through the main loading bay, weapons drawn, moving in practiced silence. The warehouse was vast and dark, moonlight falling through fractured skylights. "He's not here," one of Junho's men reported in Korean. "He's here." Junho's voice carried absolute certainty. "Show yourself, Juno." The lights blazed on, blinding. When Anika's vision cleared, Seo Juno stood on a catwalk high above them, surrounded by armed men. His smile held cold triumph. "Welcome, Junho. Mrs. Beck." He bowed in mockery. "I'm so glad you accepted my invitation." Junho's weapon tracked upward. "You're outmanned. My people have this building surrounded." "Do they?" Juno gestured and monitors flickered to life, security feeds showing Junho's men outside, all on their knees, guns to their heads. "I'm afraid your backup won't be joining us after all." Anika's stomach dropped. The trap had closed perfectly. "What do you want?" Junho remained calm. "What's owed?" Juno descended the stairs slowly, his men keeping weapons fixed. "Your wife's mother took my father from me when I was a child. She escaped, built an entire life, died in peace, while I spent 15 years hollow with rage." He stopped 10 feet away. "I intend to collect." "My mother was 19, Anika said, her voice steady. "Your father was twice her age and violent. Every record proves it. What she did was survive." Juno's smile didn't shift. "Let me tell you what actually happened." He played an audio file, a young woman's voice, terrified, weeping, speaking Korean. "I didn't mean to. I just pushed him." Her mother's voice. Or something engineered to sound exactly like it. Either way, the sound of it, that desperation, that fear, made her grief physical. "Even if that's authentic," Junho said quietly, "it justifies nothing. Punishing an innocent woman for her mother's choices isn't justice. It's cruelty. Call it whatever helps you." Juno raised his hand. His men moved their fingers to triggers. "One thing my mother gave me," Anika said, evenly, deliberately, drawing Juno's full attention, "was the understanding that survivors don't wait to be saved." Her hand found the gun in her pocket. She drew, aimed, fired. The shot caught Juno's shoulder and spun him sideways. The warehouse erupted. Junho's men opened fire. Juno's returned it. Anika drove herself behind a concrete pillar as muzzle flashes strobed through the dark and the sound became a physical thing. Junho was beside her in seconds. "I told you not to engage. He was going to kill us regardless." She checked her weapon. "What now?" His expression was fierce and bright with something that looked unmistakably like pride. "Now we survive this together." They moved through the space in tandem, Junho clearing angles, Anika covering their rear. She fired twice more. Both shots counted. The turning point came quickly. Juno's men were mercenaries, they fought for money. Junho's people fought for something that went deeper. Within minutes the tide had shifted completely. Juno's men were surrendering or down. Juno himself lay bleeding on the warehouse floor, clutching his shoulder, his face a mask of pure hatred directed upward at Anika. "You shot me," he said. "Yes." She stood over him, gun in hand. "For my mother. For myself. For every woman your father hurt while the world looked away." "Anika." Junho's hand came gently to her weapon arm, lowering it. "He's finished. It's done." She looked at him. Saw the choice he was offering her. Pull the trigger and close the cycle of violence that had destroyed so many lives, or step out of it entirely. Anika lowered the gun completely. "Call the police." "Already done. Automatic signal when we entered." 2 minutes out. As sirens built in the distance, Anika walked toward the warehouse entrance. Dawn was breaking over Busan, pale and certain, coming up over the water. Junho caught up. Turned her toward him. "You saved us in there. That shot was exactly right. I had a good instructor." "Is it really over?" she asked. "It's over. Juno goes to prison. Your father is on a plane. It's finished." His arms tightened. "So what happens now?" "The contract said 12 months. We're barely a week in." He looked at her for a long moment. "We could honor it. 11 more months, then you leave with your freedom." Her chest clenched. "Is that what you want?" "No." His hand found her face. "I want you to stay. Not because of a contract. Because you choose to. Because you want to build something real with me. I curate art. You run a criminal empire. How does that work? His smile was crooked and genuine. I have no idea. But I'd like to find out. And I promise, I'll spend every day proving you're more than a transaction to me. It wasn't poetry, but it was honest and real. Ask me properly, she said. Understanding settled across his face. Junho took her hands and said, Anika Reed, will you stay married to me? Will you build a life with a difficult, possessive man who has completely fallen for you? She pretended to consider. Will you stop tracking my phone? No. Will you stop being possessive? Absolutely not. Will you, eventually, consider going legitimate so I stop worrying about losing you? He paused. For you, I'll consider it seriously. Then yes. She pulled him down for a kiss that tasted like gunpowder and sea air in the first light of morning. Yes to all of it. When they separated, the sun had fully risen over Busan's harbor. Police moved through the warehouse behind them. Seo Juno was being loaded into an ambulance. His revenge ended. One condition, Anika said. Name it. We get a real wedding. Our people real vows, nothing contractual. Just two people choosing each other. He laughed, unguarded, genuine, and completely unlike the controlled man she'd first met. Deal. 3 months later they stood before the people they loved. No contracts. No leveraged debts. Just two people freely choosing each other in the morning light. When Junho whispered against her lips in Korean, You are my beginning and my home, Anika whispered back in the language her mother had given her. And you are mine. They had started with a lie. A transaction designed to settle a debt and serve a strategy. But what they had built between them was true, and that, in the end, was the finest outcome of all. And, till next time, please hit the subscribe button and share this to your loved ones.